welcome to the Eventual Knits podcast. My name is Leah Villa, and also known as Eventual on Ravelry. On Instagram, I am known as Miss_LJV, and thank you for being here today. Today is February 2nd. It is a balmy 35 degrees today, 2 degrees Celsius, and I'm not joking when I say that it's balmy. It was like sweater weather today. What I am wearing right now is a woven scarf that I finished. Yay! I used my 15-inch loom, wove this beautiful scarf. I'll talk more about that later. I'm also wearing my Gin Blossoms shirt. You can't tell at all that it's Gin Blossoms. The print is on the side. I really love 90s alternative music, particularly Gin Blossoms, Sister Hazel, and Matchbox 20, Everclear. All of those bands are like deep in my heart. So good. So yeah, if you ask me what my favorite kind of music is, 90s alternative is going to be my go-to. Although, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy a good top 40 pop songs, and pop punk is also amazing. So, thank you for being here today. I'm a basic girl today. I got my Caribou hot crafted press, no flavor shots, no added anything. It's just one of those days today. So let's get started. What I am wearing out in the wild is my woven scarf used with Noro and Noro Rainbow Roll. I am still wearing my Till Death mitts by Stephanie Lotvin, and I am wearing my slip stitch hat by Mrs. Moon. What have I finished? So, I have finished 3 things since I last recorded, like a little over a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago. And the first thing I finished is a plump hat for Steve. So he really wanted a knit hat to sort of deal with how cold it has been, and he really wanted to have a knit hat in preparation for the super cold snap we were about to get. He normally gets by during the winter with nothing. He has a knit scarf that I have made for him. I made for him the first year we were dating, so I finished it in 2009, and it was my first attempt at knitting a scarf that had duplicate stitch on it, and it is awesome, and he wears that. He does want another one, and it's only been 10 years, and so I bought some Karen Simply Soft for that. He really likes the acrylic yarn for scarves. He does like wool for hats, but wants that silky smooth feel of that acrylic. So this is the slip stitch hat by Mrs. Moon Plump. The yarn is 80% merino wool and 20% alpaca. The colorways are Bonbon and Raspberry Ripple. It is super soft, super squishy. Really enjoy it. Love the pom-pom. Super fun. He can't wear it in his car because it's too tall, but great. Perfectly good. Keeps his face warm in the cold, and it only took me 3 attempts to get the sizing right, and I am happy about that. The next thing I have finished is I finished my first Fishkins mitt. Yay! So this was super fun to knit. It was really, really cute to see like sort of form up. I really like how the thumb is designed. I think that Stephanie Lotvin does such a good job of creating really thoughtful patterns that are fun and not too difficult but look amazing. So this is knit in Lolo Did It L'Original. It's 85% extra fine superwash merino and 15% nylon. The colorways for this are Elba Island, that's the blue, and Folsom, which is the black. And you'll notice that the way that it's dyed, maybe you'll notice, in my picture that I put online, you can kind of see it. The yarn is not super evenly dyed. It looks like that is purposeful, where some parts are sort of lighter and some parts are darker, and I really enjoy the way it turned out. It looks like water. It has like a ripple effect. But thing is I knit it using size 2 needles, and I mean, now that I have left it for a few days, doesn't stress me out as much as it did. Like, feels a little tight, like if literally like the phrase fits like a glove. That is how it feels to me. Like, it is like very form-fitting. Like, I feel like my fingers would start to feel claustrophobic after a little while, and it sucks because I knit it using size 2s in the same way that I knit the Till Death mitts in size 2s. And this is the Till Death mitt. This is the Fishkins mitt. They are quite different, and I assume it's a yarn thing, even if the yarn is the same weight. So I do have a feeling I will undo it and re-knit it. But the thing is someone posted on there, I'll put in my show notes, I'll look it up. Someone posted one where she sort of broke up the waves and added cute little fish. Like, it'd be like 2 fish here, 2 fish here, 2 fish here. Super cute. And I really love how that looked. And so I wanted to like copy that. And as you know, ask if she doesn't mind. I assume she doesn't, since she was changing Stephanie's pattern. But anyway, super happy. Knit this in 2 days, I think, but it was a lot of dedicated knitting. So I was really happy to get this done. And the last thing that I have finished is my woven scarf, and that was woven out of Wonderland Yarns Mad Hatter in the colorway Pigments of Imagination. I used 80% of the 344 yards, which comes to about 274 yards. I figured that out by weighing it and subtracting the grams and doing a little bit of simple multiplication and division, etc., and figuring that out. And then I also used, and that's the warp here, that's the super colors here, the beautiful sort of blues and greens and purples and lavender and indigo, lots of different shades of those few colors. Super beautiful. The other yarn is the Mirasol Nuna, extra fine merino wool and mulberry silk blended with bamboo, sourced viscose, and it's 40% wool, 40% silk, 20% viscose, and it's 191 yards. I used a full skein of it, and then also 2/3 of the following skein. So I did use a lot of it, but I still have plenty left over to use for other projects, which is good because, like, I don't know if you can really see it so much in the video, but the white, or the color is Timberwolf, so it's more like a soft gray, but it's really like luminous. It's very shiny, it's very vibrant. I really like it. It's super good. I'm very happy with how it turned out. It's the first project that I have woven on my loom using all of the slots and all of the holes, whatever those are called. And so it was interesting to work on, and I feel like I did a really good job not really good job, but I improved my edging a lot as I went on. Like, I started being able to figure out, you know, how to not make it too tight, which is usually my problem. I imagine it's probably a lot of people's problems when they're first weaving, and so I was pretty proud of how most of my edges turned out. So that was really fun. I weaved it during one of my days off, and then I weaved it when my garage door broke and I was trapped in my house and waiting for a garage door person to come who never came. And so I got picked up to go to professional development at work yesterday. Next, I'm going to talk about what I am working on. So, because most of my project that I worked on this week was this, and I just finished it yesterday, and so I knit like one row on my vanilla latte mitts, and I feel like that wasn't really worth showing, so I didn't bring those today. But I have been working on Steve's second sock here. These are on size 2 needles. They are high-as it looks like. And they are done in the Ogle Design Fiber Arts coloration. It's a fingering yarn. And it's this beautiful speckly yellow and black gradient. And I'm getting close to the ribbing. So this is the original one. I think I talked about it last time that this fits Steve's foot exactly, but you know, when you put on socks, you kind of want them to stretch a little usually. And so I'm knitting this one smaller. I think this one will fit his foot a lot better, but I'm getting close to where the heel will be put in. And the way that I put heels in is I really do, I just knit all the way up. I finish the tube and then I figure out where the heel should go. And I put two DPNs in, like on either side of that row where I'm going to insert the heel. It's an afterthought heel. I used to put afterthought heels in using a waste yarn to sort of mark where the heel is, but then I realized I didn't really need that as long as I know where the heel should go, and it works beautifully. And I mean, if you look at this heel, it's a really nice heel. And it's just like getting a toe, right? Or yeah, doing a toe on a sock, but a really big one. And so, I mean, the edges, everything looks really nice. There's no holes. It works in pretty good. So anyway, I really like knitting socks this way. So I'm really excited about getting this done for him. Since last time I have knit from here. So got a decent number of rows. I had Steve knit several stitches. I think I just found where they are. One day when we went out to eat, and I had two projects in my bag, and the other project that I was working on was the High Hampton cowl here, and it's so gorgeous. I've only knit like a couple of rows on it. It's pretty slow going. It's got a lot of stitches, but it's really soft and really great to work on. And I worked on this as well as, worked on both of these actually at a staff meeting yesterday. The High Hampton cowl is by Claudia Miller McLean, and it's in Claudia Hand Paint Serenity in Jungle and Bayou. So very beautiful, very soft. Keep working on it. Self-indulgent knit along is what I'm doing this for, and hopefully I'll finish at some point. All right, everybody, that's all that I am currently working on. Let's move on to upcoming projects and other things. So before I forget, I would like to start out with talking about a new knitting bag that I got. This beautiful, beautiful bag is from Duckpool Lane. There's a cute little logo here. It's really thick, like nice material. It comes with a little clip here, and it's super, super, I don't know, it's just very like, it feels like really good quality. And I ordered it from her, and it came super fast even though it was coming from the UK, and I think it's great. It's relatively big, could fit up to a medium-sized project, closes really nicely. I would definitely recommend buying from her. So super excited, very happy about this. Next, I bought, ooh, sorry for crinkling. I bought this gradient. I have been looking at this yarn multiple times for quite a while at Steve & B, my local yarn store in Minneapolis, and I finally decided to get it, and I'm so happy that I did because it's so gorgeous. I mean, I cannot get over these shades. They're so good. They're so beautiful. And to counterbalance them, I also picked up the last of this one. So that is the Cheshire Cat in Salmon to Yellow, number 30. And this is Cheshire Cat's Down the Rabbit Hole, Too Much Pepper, number 21. But it's like the white to the black. And I initially was buying them because I was planning on making the Inara wrap by Emily McCrae, but I remembered that I really have wanted to be knitting the Goldfish Memories shawl by Casapinka, and I am super excited to do that. I think that this yarn will knit up beautifully in that shawl, and so I enjoy her patterns, and so I'm super excited to get that started soon. And I also have been keeping my eye on the Easterly Blanket by Melissa Alexander Loomis. I did buy it. I bought it with the Southeasterly Blanket, and I think that it will be a really good project for a lot of my like remnants from fingering weight and using up beautiful yarns that I can't throw away the remaining little bits for. And I'm curious to see how that will go and how much yarn I will want to be using from each. Like some of my yarns have just a little bit and some of it have kind of a lot, and it's like, do I knit them into socks, or you know, what do I do there, right? So we'll see how that goes. And the last thing is that my cousin Morgan has asked me to knit him some gloves. So he said he gave away his gloves to a client. He works in social services, and he now needs new gloves. And so I decided that you know, it would be good to knit him some gloves, and he really wants some gloves with video game characters on it. So when I'm talking to people about making them things, especially if I'm worried that they might be unrealistic, I make it super clear what can and cannot be put on an item. When I used to knit scarves, I would have people ask me for crazy things to put on a scarf that would be 30 stitches across, for example. Like the craziest thing I can think of is a Majora's Mask. If you don't know what Majora's Mask looks like from Zelda, please Google Majora's Mask and think about how someone wanted me to use worsted weight yarn and put that on a scarf. So I was really clear with him about what I could and couldn't do, and I think that he suggested some reasonable characters that I can either find pixelated on the internet or simplified down. So I used to sell scarves that were geeky in various ways, so most of them were video game themed, although not everything was. So there was someone who commissioned a custom scarf for me who I believe their scarf had Ralph from Wreck-It Ralph, Boo from Super Mario World, Master Chief from Halo, and I can't remember what the last one was, but it was a really cool scarf. I was super happy to knit it, but that was a realistic custom request. And so I'm excited to knit those for my cousin. He either wants Rydia and Rosa from Final Fantasy IV or Terra and Celis from Final Fantasy VI. So I'm going to take a look and see what I can find out there. I typically take cross-stitch pixelations and simplify them down. One thing I have definitely learned about duplicate stitching is that the less colors, the more it pops. If you use more colors and you try to do it like cross-stitch, I feel like the intent sort of gets lost. It gets kind of muddied because the stitches are so much bigger, even on gloves, than in cross-stitch. And so I have simplified like Link and Zelda down, and even Navi, and they look really, really good. I have the one chart that I've ever made that I put up online that people have used because I was so surprised that there wasn't any like Link and Zelda out there. It's crazy to me. So I put those out there for people. If you want to check them out on my Ravelry, that would be awesome. So moving on. Podcasts that I have really enjoyed this week. First, I really want to call out Curious Handmade. So she was talking about sort of the things that have been going on in the community over the last month to do with diversity and about making people known who have just been not known as a result of the, you know, racial bias that happens towards white people in knitting. And she pointed out a person, Kalisha, and her Instagram handle is, I want to say Nadiratani, but I've never heard it said out loud, of course, but it's Nadiratani, and I'll put it in my show notes, of course. And she talked about how her Instagram story really spoke to, Helen talked about how her Instagram story really spoke to her, and so I went to check her out, and I would say it's the most like personal and human example, and just the way she talks I feel like anyone who's feeling defensive, any white person who's feeling defensive about all this that's happening in the knitting community right now, I really feel like she speaks in such a way that makes you feel compassionate and makes you really put yourself in her shoes and have that empathy and understanding. You know, there's a lot of people, white people, and maybe, people who are not white but are not ready to maybe have this conversation, who are upset that it's sort of disrupting our collective, space, like our escape, our community. Maybe people just don't want to admit that what we think of as a community excludes people, and that, again, impact versus intent, And so I really, really feel like even if you are totally supportive of the movement, like I am, I really think that it's a really, really good watch, and she speaks beautifully. It's like she's kind of talking in poetry, but she wasn't talking like rhyming poetry. I don't know, it was really impactful. I watched it by myself and felt really emotional afterwards, and then I had Steve watch it later, and while he was watching it, he was across the room, and I like hearing it again, just the humanness, the vulnerability, just everything about it just got me. It's so hard, and I just started weeping, and not out of white guilt, but just in being like wow, I can totally feel where you're coming from. And so I really encourage you to check it out. It is amazing, and her Instagram is also really amazing. And it's on her, the only story on her Instagram, and it's titled I Am Here, and it was really meaningful to me, so I feel like it could also be meaningful to you. And the other podcast that I thought was really valuable to this conversation, especially if you are feeling unsure of what a lot of these words mean, if you're not sort of involved in knowing the history of all of this stuff and in different terms that are used. Christy Glass posted a podcast here on YouTube titled This Is Us, and it was her and several other makers, and they just talk about those things. They talk about definitions, they talk about experiences, and again, it's like there's passion and there's intensity, but I don't think it's blaming really in any way. It's just pointing out the things that really exist out there, and things that we need to change, and how we as a community can do better and be better. So that's all I'm going to say on that for now, but I highly recommend both of those things. This Is Us is like an hour and a half long, because it's like a forum kind of. It's a discussion by 5 or 6 people. So I really think that it's really good to check out, but it might take a little bit longer. I also started listening to Knitting Myself Together. She just released her first episode of her new season, is what she calls them, and I really found her voice super soothing. And this first episode was really interesting, and it talks a lot about being happy with where you're at, and don't put your life on hold thinking that what's happening right now is temporary and you're about to move on to something bigger and better, and that life itself is temporary, and this is where you're at, and you should really appreciate it, enjoy it. And I really found it soothing and helpful, and I really enjoyed that one. And lastly, the Knit Girls. I am still working through their most recent podcast, and it was really funny when they were trying to remember Hayao Miyazaki's name. They were talking about the different movies that he and Studio Ghibli have made, and they could not remember his name. And I'm not all the way through it, but of course, something I really enjoy. And next, let's talk about my Instagram faves for this week. So I already mentioned Kalisha, and I also have been really enjoying Knit Circus. They've been sort of all over Instagram lately. I think they're working on a bunch of new colorways, and I really enjoy Knit Circus. They do amazing gradients, and they have good kits, and I usually buy for them in person. They have a store in Madison Wisconsin, and so when I'm visiting Madison, I go there and I really like to buy stuff from them, but I have to be careful because their yarn is pretty spendy and I can easily spend $1 billion there. I have also really been enjoying Gigi Made It. Gigi purports this huge love of orange, and so everything she knits has some sort of element of orange in it, and it's just super vibrant, looks really good on her, and she talks about how it fits her personality. It's bright and loud just like her, and it made me really excited about orange. Like, I don't really think of orange when I'm knitting. I prefer, softer, cooler colors a lot of the time, or darker colors, and it really made me excited about super bright, vibrant yarns. I have bright greens and maybe bright blues, but I can't think of any yarns that I have that are like a bright orange. And the closest I have are some of the sock yarns that I have that are self-striping that go with the Miyazaki Club from Canon Hand Dyes. But even then, I still feel like they're more muted than the oranges that she uses. So I don't know, I might try something in orange. I'm not sure if that will look good on my skin tone or not, but I would definitely love to try it. I also have been really enjoying Brazen Stitchery on Instagram. They right now are doing a Whip Wednesday, and you just post a picture of your whip and hashtag it, and you can enter to win a drawing. I think there was only like 12 people in this last drawing, and I was only one number off, but I didn't win. But I would encourage you to get in that. Maybe I shouldn't be telling you because it lowers my chances of winning. But I really think you should get into it. I love entering those like little things. Like, it just makes you feel excited and happy about what you're working on and what other people are working on, and it's just cool. And lastly, I have also been really enjoying Begins with a C. I found this person through the diversity posts and all that kind of stuff, and I just really like her posts. And I also think that we just started February for February, and I didn't post anything simply because my Instagram is also my general Instagram. Like, I mostly post knitting stuff, but it's still a personal Instagram, and I don't know, I really don't feel like I don't want to do an introductory post that introduces myself to people who know me already. It's like hard to describe, but it just feels weird. Like, if it was just a knitting Instagram, I probably would. And it's one of those things where, like, do I want to make just a knitting Instagram just that's separate? It's like, I don't know, it feels like too late at this point, because I have sort of cultivated the accounts that I like to follow, and I feel like everyone is more interactive lately, even sort of bigger accounts. And so I don't want to sort of start over with following and all that kind of stuff on a different account. But it just means that I maybe won't participate in all of those things as much. But I'm super enjoying everybody else's posts. Like, they're so interesting. I love learning about people. I hope everyone else participates. I know it's really hypocritical of me, but I just really enjoy it. So if you haven't started February, you should do that. And so I think that is everything super knitting related. I do have one small thing to talk about. I mentioned, I think last time, about how I won it wasn't even a contest. I just, shared a post and liked to post by Little Knits on Facebook, and I won 2 skeins of Noro, and I just got them in the mail, and it's this one and this one to be knit together. They are designed to be knit together for a pattern in the most recent issue of Noro. And this is Silk Garden Sock yarn in colorway S457 lot A, and this is colorway S8 in lot B. This is Garden Sock Solo. Is that what that one is too? This one's just Silk Garden Sock, and this is Garden Sock Solo, I imagine, because it's a single color. But I was really surprised. I guess I didn't pay attention, but I got the entire Noro magazine for this week, and I'm a millennial. I mean, I was born in 87, but I'm still a millennial, and I don't really ever look at or think about or anything with like print copies of things for the most part. I really enjoy the convenience of Ravelry and being able to pull up a pattern at any given time. I mean, sometimes I might print out a pattern if I want to write on it or something, but usually I just take a screenshot and I draw all over it with the markup in Photos. And so it's really been cool having this. Like, I was super surprised, and it makes me really excited for some of these patterns. So if they are working on marketing, it worked. And really happy to win that. Check out Little Knits on Facebook. So next thing, I'm sure everyone in the United States and probably around the world from following people in the United States know that we are just getting out of a polar vortex. So I live in Minnesota, and we were right in one of the super cold pockets. We had minus 50-degree wind chills for several days, and so I had Monday through Thursday off of school. Monday was called off due to snow, although, if I'm being honest, we could have gone to work. It was very unclear whether the snow would stop by the time school was going to be starting, and last year in this area there was a huge debacle where they did not call off school because they thought the snow was going to hold off until a certain part of the day, and it ended up being a complete disaster. It started coming down super, super heavy right around the time that middle schools and high schools were getting out. And if you don't know anything about school districts, a lot of times buses are used for the middle and high schools first, and then they go pick up the elementary kids after. And so there are a lot of elementary kids that were simply stuck at school or stuck on buses until like 11 o'clock, midnight in the whole area, not just a district. It was in several districts around the area, the metro area here, the Twin Cities. And so ever since then, all of the districts have been really quick to call off school when they're not sure about snow, which is a dangerous game for them because we get a lot of snow. So they called off Monday. And then by Tuesday morning, they called off Tuesday through Thursday. No, Tuesday and Wednesday right away. Like, they knew it was going to be too cold for buses, for children, super dangerous, just not worth it. And pretty much the whole state did, I think. And, it was so serious. Like, USPS stopped delivering, the Postal Service. Many businesses were closed. Some businesses tried to stay open but closed early. It was really dangerous. I just didn't leave home. Tuesday morning, I left for a doctor's appointment, but was able to get home. Interestingly, it was warmer in the morning on Tuesday, and then just got progressively colder as the afternoon went on, and which is usually the opposite of what happens. And it was really, really cold, but it was not as cold, and so I just did not go outside. And I was happy to just stay inside and knit and not go to work. Steve took off Wednesday he started taking off Wednesday, but then he works at the University of Minnesota, and they ended up closing the whole campus, so he got that day off for free too. Wednesday was insanely cold. And then Thursday they called off. It was going to be warmer by the afternoon, and by warmer, that's relative, like the -17 range. But in the morning, it was still going to be well below the -35-degree threshold that we have, and buses weren't going to be starting, and it wasn't going to ease up even if we had a 2-hour delay. So they decided to just cancel Thursday, and luckily for my district, we had a professional development day scheduled for yesterday, so we didn't have to have kids for one day on Friday. But the neighboring gigantic district next to us in St. Paul had school, and I heard it was really bad, and I'm glad that we didn't have to deal with that. But as I said, I was stuck at home anyway for half of the day trying to deal with a garage door issue. Our garage door mechanism, like the big box that controls the chain and has little wiggly things and all that kind of stuff, broke, and so we had to get it replaced. But we were conned all day from 8 to 10, 10 to 12, and 12 to 2, being told that people were coming to fix our garage. And at 2:30, someone finally showed up. So I stayed home for half the day, and then I had to get picked up to go to work, and then Steve dealt with it. So got that replaced. Have a beautiful, smooth, awesome new garage door mechanism now. What else? Oh, today, so when I said earlier that today is balmy, it like legitimately feels balmy. It was 35 degrees today. That's a literal 70-degree difference from earlier this week. So it's much nicer. It's gonna get back to the teens again this next week, but it's beautiful right now. Video game wise, Steve and I have continued to play Overcooked 2 on the PlayStation 4, and that was really fun. We just are working on getting me the platinum trophy for that, and it's a really exciting game in terms of like fun, silly, like trying to rack up points, like trying to beat your best score. It's just cute, good, clean fun. And I mentioned in my last episode that I play a dance game in the Groove, and I am part of a global sort of competition right now. It's not really a competition, like it is and it isn't. It's much more about like improving your accuracy, and you're competing against yourself. And so I have been playing a decent amount of that, trying to improve my scores and just making little gains here and there, and it's been really good. I really enjoy the exercise, and I'm keeping that up. And lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about at work we are reading through the Giver series. So I feel like probably a lot of you read The Giver when you were in school, and I mean I read it when I was in middle school, and that there are actually 3 other books in the series. And so I read through The Giver with some of my 6th grade students, and then we watched the movie, and then I asked them, like, do you want to move on to a different book? Do you want to try a different series, or do you want to keep going? And they said, let's keep going. So we read the second book, Gathering Blue. Very interesting. Not a lot happens. You just learn about a different world, and you're not really sure how it's connected to the first book. And then you start the third one, which is called The Messenger, and then you realize, you figure out how The Giver and Gathering Blue are connected, and it's super interesting. And that book is much more not action, but like a lot of things sort of happen, or a lot of situations occur, and it's strange, and you're not like, you still are not sure about the world and what kind of world. Like they mention things like Moby Dick, so it's like it is like Earth, but it's also not. Like strange things happen, and so it's super interesting. We are just finishing, like literally 10 pages from the end, The Messenger, and I read ahead after I finished the last chapter with my students, and it is sad, and I was devastated, and I'm still devastated. Oh man, but it makes me really excited to read the final book. And so when I read The Giver, I thought that, spoilers, if you don't want to hear spoilers, you can skip this, but I thought that Jonas and Gabe died at the end of The Giver when I read it, and I don't know if it's because I am a huge Stephen King fan and I just sort of assume those kinds of things, but that was the feeling that I got. And so my students, and it was really interesting to hear my students' perspectives. None of them thought that they died. They weren't sure whether it was a metaphor or if it was something real, or if they made another thought that I had was, did Jonas and Gabe make a loop somehow and end up back where they started? And that was one of the theories that one of the kids brought up, and I mean, it's interesting. And like in Messenger and in apparently the final book in this series, you find out what happened to them, and it's really like, it's cool. It's cool to, like, as an adult, find out what happened in a book that I read when I was 12. So, all right, I think that's about it for this week's podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. All of my show notes will be on my blog, eventualknitspodcast.blogspot.com. I will put a link down below, and I hope that you enjoyed. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, leave me a comment. You can message me on Instagram, you can find me on Ravelry. Totally excited to make new friends, and I hope to see you guys again soon, probably in a week or two. Bye.